And welcome, everybody, to another Nothing Like a Good Book. And you're going to love this one. How about a life in the fast lane? Yeah, sounds good. Well, this particular lady, this author, has lived she's a warrior, adventurer, risk taker, lover of life, a fearless being jumping off cliffs without a net. I am what so many others dream to be, is what she says. Georgene Summers. It's a brilliant memoir. So welcome to Nothing Like a Good Book and Angels in Sin, Mayhem, Money, and Murder. That's penned by Georgene Summers. Welcome, Georgene.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. A compelling mix, this book, my dear, of steamy romance, true crime, and mind-blowing inspiration. Oh, boy, Angels in Sin. What a name. How did you come up with that? We'll get back to that in a minute, but it's a veritable page-turner. I mean, it leaves the reader breathless with each chapter. You are a best-selling author. Every page is the true story of your incredible risk-filled, wild, and fearless ride through life. I bet you there's a lot of people who read this book will be so jealous. You know, would you agree with that critique that you were given?
I think so, yes. I think they'll be shocked. Yes, shocked, surprised, fascinated. And that was really one of the reasons that I put in all those pictures, because I said, after everything had been edited, I said, you know what? People aren't going to believe this. I need to really put some support documents in there so that they know that it's all true.
We've got a pretty good line. So, I'm speaking to you. You're down in Mexico, and gratefully we've got a good line, so I'm hoping we won't drop out or anything. Listen, as a young single mom, you had to forge a path of saying yes to the challenges that you did face with determination. It taught you how to overcome fear, right, and become a warrior. And according to Brad Butler, an author 5 stars has given you, your storytelling is both engaging and insightful, making this book a must-read for anyone interested in the complexities of human experience and the strength of the human spirit. So give us an idea, Georgene, of what you went through in those early days.
Well, it was very difficult. First of all, at the age of 17, my first experience, and with my boyfriend, who then became my first husband, I ended up, I thought I had the flu, but I was wrong, and I was pregnant. And my parents insisted, because back then it would be a sin to have a baby out of wedlock, and so they found a butcher, and I had to go through an illegal abortion at the age of 17, which was horrendous. And then, of course, when we got together, my then boyfriend and I got pregnant again when we got married. And so I went through, we were together for a couple of years. And then when we parted, there I was, a 20-year-old single mom, and he offered me the princely sum of $15 a week to support myself and our son. Mm-hmm. And so I had no choice but to forge a pathway that said, I'm going to go to work. I'm going to take jobs, whatever I have to do, in order to be able to take care of my son and myself.
Of course, you did the right thing. Angels of Sin, it's not a typical memoir, but rather a collection, really, isn't it, of hundreds of fascinating stories, experiences that encompass what seems like several lifetimes to most people, and some of them have made national news for more than a few years, involving your interactions with celebrities, politicians, encountered around the globe, and the whole bit about the nightclub in the heart of Manhattan. Now, can you share what that was like for you? So we'll cut a lot out, but somehow or other you got involved into that world.
Well, at that particular time, I was going out with somebody, and he was a dreamer, and he constantly came up with ideas that he never followed through on. And I remember one day walking across Fifth Avenue, and he said something about a nightclub, and I thought, that's it, baby, I'm finished here. We're going to get this done. So I went out, I raised the money, and it was long and short, ended up building this club on East 27th Street. And I didn't realize at the time, I knew I had to have some, strong people behind me because of the nature of the business. But what I didn't realize, for opening night, I had 1,500 celebrities and Europeans and models, and there were limousines stretched all along 27th. And the club was very trendy, and it was really sort of ahead of its time. And it turns out that at about 1:30 in the morning, there was a banging on the door. The butler answered the door, and there was someone there who said, if you don't shut this, I won't use the term, place down, I'm going to blow it up. Welcome to the neighborhood. And that was the beginning. And it was a very stressful time, but I ended up, I'm a very strong person, and I believe that there's a solution to every problem. You just have to step outside the box and find it. And it's not always so easy. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's very difficult, but there is a solution. And, I was a few days away from the club being taken away. This is down the road a bit. And I reached out to somebody I had met early on who had an illegal gambling club, but it was one that sort of catered to people like Frank Sinatra and Joey. So I knew he knew some important people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What was the name of the first club? What was the name of the first one? The club in Manhattan.
Club?
Yes.
The club was called Bolero.
Okay. And that was the Manhattan one, right? The first one. The second one, the gambling club. Well, that was a different ball game, right?
No, I never had a gambling club. I had the nightclub, and I just had that one club. That was enough. After dealing with that for a few years, believe me, this person that these people got me in touch with, his father and father-in-law were one of the 5 families. And so he didn't even know the people I was dealing with. They were so far down the food chain. Mm-hmm. And he actually, it turns out he was so impressed with me. He came to the club, and he basically called me later and said he couldn't help me because his father and father-in-law already had the club, and they were getting ready to take it away from me. And he was so impressed with how I handled things, because I said, thank you very much for helping me, and I appreciate your help, and I will continue to fight in my own backyard. And a couple of days later, he called me up, and I didn't know that he went ahead and went to the elders. And he called me up and he says, I went to the elders, how much do you want for the club? And he actually offered me a job, and I said, thank you very much. I appreciate it, really, but I think I've had enough. And I told him what I wanted for the club, and then I also said to him, I think I've been watching too many movies, so I said I will walk away a stand-up guy. I never want to have to look over my shoulder. And he said one word to me. He said, done. And we hung up. I never spoke to him again. 3 days later, some club people that really owned a number of clubs around the country, they had made a bid on the club. But they were just trying to get rid of another buyer, and then they walked away. They came back, and they offered me the exact price I had told this unrelated person on Sunday, and they bought the club. And that was it. And I knew at that point that when he said done, I never had to worry. I never had to look over my shoulder.
That's good, because I'm going to read this. You could tell us where it is in the book and why. It was only later that I discovered that the butcher of Commonwealth Avenue killed a girl the very next day. Now, that could have been me. The coroner's office could have been called to the House of Horrors, take me away in a black body bag, and dump me in a cold metal slab for an autopsy. The coroner would have slit me open as I lay naked on that stainless steel table, eyes wide open to the ceiling. Wow.
Yes.
Tell us,
share. That was in Descent into Hell. And it's really interesting because, Mark, it's many decades since I had this abortion from this I call him the butcher. Mm-hmm. But I remember literally the smell of the carpeting upstairs. I remember I can see the inside of this house where it happened just like it was yesterday. It was such an impact on my life. And that particular part was that the third time that I had to go back to him 3 times because of different medical problems that I had and what was surrounding the operation. And, of course, there was no anesthetic. There was nothing. He just shoved a towel in my mouth and said, bite down and don't scream. The neighbors will hear you. And it was so terrifying. And anyway, in that chapter, it's like when I found out that the third time that I went to him, the next day he killed another girl on the table. And that's why I thought to myself, here's my parents, they made me do this because of the neighbors. Mm-hmm. And what if that had been me? I mean, they would have been crying there on the side, and I sort of imagined what it would have been like if they had been there sobbing away after they made me go through this horrific procedure, and how they would feel about it. Mm-hmm. And it was just like this feeling. Because at one point, when I was there in this house, because I was there like overnight, I actually snuck to a telephone up there. They had the old dial phone, and I dialed the number of my parents, and you could hear people laughing. They were having a party downstairs. Mm-hmm. And I dialed it, and I was so fearful that they would hear the sound of the dial tone, the dial coming back and click, click, click. And my mother finally answered the phone. And I said to her, Mother, you have to come and get me. He's going to kill me. Ugh. And she said, not until this is over. And she hung up on me. And I guess then when I found out that he killed a girl the next day, it was like, now what if that had been me?
Right.
And what would you have said? They're on line on a cold metal slab in the coroner's office.
Yeah, right. I get it now. Now, look, other stories follow your family affairs, including the parallels and divergent points between you and your mother, and your complicated relationship with your son. Why was that, if I may ask?
Interesting that you ask that, because it was, he never forgave me for divorcing his father, who was my first husband, and my only regret, because I say today, the only regret I have in my life is that I didn't listen to my parents when they told me to stay away from him. Mm-hmm. And my son only wanted to have his father love him. And his father just doesn't have the capacity to love anyone but himself. And so Greg constantly was angry at me all the time. And whatever his father did was okay. Mm-hmm. If I had done 1% of what his father did, I mean, horrible things, he would have never, ever spoken to me for the rest of my life. But his father could get away with anything. Mm-hmm. And it was so sad because I did all the things for Greg on every level. And I mean, I say I gave birth to him 9 months 2 times, because when he got in trouble and was arrested for a murder, which is in the book, I spent like 9 months of my life working with his lawyers and investigating the case, and the work that I did assisted in getting him acquitted in 24 minutes, and he never even acknowledged it. And so it was a very difficult relationship, very sad. And I think one thing that really surprised me was that he was quite ill, and I went down to Panama to see him, and I made a slideshow. I made a few slideshows of things that I had done, safaris I'd been on. And he was quite sick, and he sat on the edge of the couch, and I showed him one slideshow. And he looked at me incredulously, and he said, "You did that, Mom?" And it was like at that moment I realized he had no idea who I was. And then I said, he passed away.
Yeah.
So he really passed away never knowing who I was. And that was very sad.
Well, Georgene, regarding your less than typical experiences, you do say this today. I wonder what normal really looks like, not only to me, but to others around me. I mean, I think my view may be somewhat bizarre and politically incorrect. Normal to me is not having friends you've known since grade school, especially when you're 60. Normal to me is not living 6 blocks from where you were born, or where you grew up, or where your mother, father, sister, brother, or aunt live. Normal to me is living life to the fullest, taking risks and experiencing everything that it has to offer. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the who knows, no matter what. Okay, so I will say your extensive travels, let's get on to the African bit. Your extensive travels include 7 safaris, but here's the deal, folks, she does it alone. Just with her unarmed Maasai guide as company in 4 African countries. I think you're nuts, but still, she travelled the globe alone, no tours, none of that jazz, experiencing the real cultures and the people and filling each moment with excitement, risk, and unexpected dangers. How does one go through 4 African countries without any weaponry for protection, Georgene?
Well, it's just, you see, I feel and have always felt that you're in their territory. It's not the zoo. This is their territory, and I am respectful of their power and their strength. And so, in the safaris, in all the safaris that I've done, I've gone for 3 to 6 weeks at a time, 7 safaris, 4 countries, unarmed, Maasai guide at all times. Because if I put myself into a situation where I'm in danger, then that's my stupidity that did it. And I'll just quickly tell you just a quick little thing that a few years ago, I was in a doctor's office, and there was a young medical assistant there, a young girl. And, we started talking, and I told her that my safaris, and she said, "Oh, my God, I would love to do that." I said to her, "Well, why don't you?" She said, "I'm afraid." I said, "Afraid of what?" She said, "See, tourists get eaten all the time." I looked at her. I said, "Honey, tourists don't get eaten unless they get out of the car, they think they're at the zoo, and they try to pose with a lion. That's how they get eaten." And it's true. I've gone out and I've been walking, but I've walked and I've been very close to lions, but I've taken the appropriate care. I don't run from them. I stay put. You don't run and let them think you're game, that you're their dinner.
Right. Well, I'll just share a part here from the book because it's synonymous with what you're saying. First, we cite 3 black rhino. I couldn't believe my eyes as they ambled along in the distance. 2 adults, 1 baby. We waited with the patience of Job for them to come within a reasonable distance so they would look more like the just smudges on the landscape. So they laid down and disappeared into the landscape. And as we moved along, then I saw a group of rocks. And I thought, oh, goody, a pit stop. I need this now. I can accomplish this. This was just 100 yards from where we first spotted the rhinos. Moments later, a female lion appeared from behind the rocks, and sitting on top were 3 tiny cubs. They were ever so cute, and I watched as their mother followed them and tall, tawny-coloured grasses and move on. So you see, they realised you weren't afraid, so they didn't, or she didn't, really, she wasn't afraid of you, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been respectful wherever I am, and I'm never really around anybody because what usually happens with other people is they sight one lion far away, they take a little picture, and then they see another rhino and they see an elephant. Now they think they've been on safari. In fact, I had a former friend of mine say to me, "Oh, I don't need to see your pictures. You've seen one lion, you've seen them all." And I thought, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Every single sighting that I've had in the 7 safaris that I've done in 4 countries, plus some smaller ones, every experience has been unique and amazing and different. There's no 2 alike. And I have a respect for the animals and their power and their strength. And I honor that at all times. I wouldn't want to be with a guide that was armed because I shouldn't be putting myself in a situation where that would be necessary. I guess that's my heart speaking.
Well, remember, guys, the name of the book is A Life in the Fast Lane. Lots of different stories within the book, right? If you're wondering. And it covers mayhem, money, and murder. Pretty much everything these days, isn't it? John Kelly, who we know well of the Detroit Free Press, he says this about your book, Georgene. Woven into the stunning stories of her life, she also offers up to the reader life lessons, great advice on how to overcome tragedy and disappointments and how to find success when all appears lost. So it's a memoir so compelling it begs for adaptation to the big screen. Highly recommended. There's no doubt about it. It surely would be colourful on the big screen. I should imagine so. Have you had any offers at all, Georgene, to consider the book going into a film?
Well, I'll tell you this. I had the award-winning screenwriter who he said, he wanted me to talk with his colleagues, and they felt that there was so much there. It's more than an hour and a half to do it as a TV series. And so he wrote these for a TV series. And so I'm excited about either way. I think it could be both, actually. And I think now that it's out there in print, Angels and Sin, Mayhem, Money, and Murder, and it has this incredibly strong female lead, which I think the movie industry really looks for and needs. And so I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful.
I'm thinking of a Meryl Streep. How far off am I?
Well, Meryl Streep or Reese Witherspoon or her name has just escaped me. The one who did Barbie.
Okay. Well, life has its twists and turns, and one never really knows how things are going to turn out, even though we think we do. We see our parents as invincible and our friends as trustworthy and loyal. And that's a lot of crap. We know that. We see ourselves as knowing far more than what we do and only realize how little we really know when it's too late to convey that to those that matter. Only now do I realize how valuable. Georgene says, the input of my parents was back then, and today I wish I had listened more carefully to their words of wisdom. But like most kids, I was rebellious, stubborn, strong-willed, rude at times, hateful at times, deceptive, and I wrote the book on life, or I thought I did. Georgene Summers. That's how you really feel, huh? A lot of twists and turns in life. There are. Well, I think this book, all right, it's definitely a helpful book. I think people will get support out of this book in reference to, like I just covered, when all appears lost, you've come out of a real down, or there's something pretty dramatic and sad that has happened in your life. We've all had kicks in the guts. We've all been let down by our friends who you thought were friends, and so on and so on. I mean, you're a loner, and you've done so much on your own. What do you want to convey? What are you hoping the reader will get out of this book?
Well, there's a number of things. I think, number one, just say yes to all challenges, because I've gone through life doing that, and believe me, it's made a huge difference. You don't know if you can do something or not until you do it. And, I say to people, try to pick up that pen off there's people say, I'm going to try. Try to pick up the pen off the table so you can pick it up, and maybe you'll pick it up the wrong way and drop it. So now don't pick it up that way. Do it another way. And you'll do it enough times until you finally pick it up the right way. Don't pick it up from the tip. So it's like that. So it's not, I say,
yes.
There's no such thing as...
I know, Georgene, but you're more riskier than that. I mean, it's all very well with the pen on the table, but if I said to you, Georgene Summers, hey, there's some bungee jumping, away you go. Well, it's not a matter of, is it? I don't know if I did it right or wrong. You just do it.
Bungee jumping is a bit much because I had a back injury years ago, so I don't want to do anything like that. But I've done several zip linings, which in Africa, which are not like zip linings in America. 11 platforms, you go up about 1,100 feet, and then you come down 11 platforms going like 55, 60 miles an hour. And I've done that a number of times, and It's fantastic.
1,100 feet for starters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
And you're on the tops of trees, I would imagine, right? Like jungle.
Yeah, and you have a little thing that you can pull to slow yourself down before you smash into the platform.
All right.
and end up liquefied. And so they give you that, but it's 11 platforms, and it's amazing. It's when I see people going one thing, like, they say, no, that's not really zip lining, everybody. But yeah, I just say I've done things and said yes when it was ridiculous, and been put in positions where I had an instance where I got a job. I needed sort of a fill-in, sort of a side hustle, because I had 2 properties in Colorado and they weren't rented, and so it was like the mid '80s after the nightclub, and I had been in the fashion business for like 20-some years. Had my own showroom, made a lot of money back in the '70s. So I went and interviewed for a job as a showroom girl, making like $1,500 a month, which was ridiculous, considering the years I'd been in the business. And so they didn't hire me. They were a duty-free. They had 5 duty-free shops in Hong Kong, and they dealt with Chanel and Givenchy, all accessories. So they wouldn't hire me. They thought I was too qualified. So I kept on it. I kept calling them. And I said to them, look how lucky you are. For $1,500 a month, you're getting somebody as qualified as me. So they hired me. And I came in, and 3 weeks after I had been there, a box arrived, and I opened it up, and it was a line of handbags in this incredibly fabulous, trendy rubber fabric. But the bags were like old lady bags, hobo bags, Boston bags. And about 2 hours later, the owner came in, and he said to me, what do you think of the new line? I said, I didn't know the difference between a gusset and a grommet. I knew what I liked, and I knew how to sell it. I sold at every major department store in the country. I made a ton of money. And so I looked at him and I said, it looks like it was designed by a blind person. I can do better. So he can come into my office. I go in his office. I sit down. He said, tell me what you want. I said, I want to go home for a couple of weeks, and I'll come back with a line. Okay, long and short, I grab up the lecture set. I get the portfolio, the big pieces of paper. I go home, and I draw out a dozen beautiful snakeskin and what I saw as expensive leather handbags that were going to be like Carlos Falchi, $500, $800, $1,000. Okay. I come back. I start showing him. He loves them. I told him I wanted $7,500 bonus, and I want to go to Italy. So he didn't want to do that. So I tried talking to him for about an hour, and I told him all the reasons why he should send me. He finally agreed. He says, I'll give you $3,500. And the sticking point was sending me to Italy, but I got him off that too. The following week, I leave for Italy. Their contact there meets me at the airport, and he takes me to the handbag company, and I go and I source the leather, beautiful lambskin, beautiful snakeskin, and they start doing the samples. And at one point he says to me, do you want a side, a gusset, a bottom? I said, I don't know. Okay. A couple of days later passed. He brings me back to the handbag place, and they show me my beautiful line of snakeskin and lamb leather envelopes. There is no dimension to them. You could not get a lipstick in them. They're flat as pancakes, beautiful, flat as pancakes. So all of a sudden, it hits me. Guess whose line that was that I said looked like a blind person designed it? The guy that was taking me around. So the next morning, that was a big oops moment. The next morning, he comes to pick me up at the hotel, and I said, come in the lobby. We need to sit down and talk. I said, I know you sabotaged me. I said, I know that was your line that you sent me that I told him looked like a blind person designed it. So here's the choices. Choice one, I'm going to fly back and I'm going to tell them what you did, that you sabotaged me. They're not going to be very happy because they spent a bunch of money to send me here. Choice two is you take me to the right handbag company and get the samples done. I will go home with my samples and I will never say a word. Wisely, he chose choice two. I never said anything. But at that moment, I knew how to design a handbag.
There you
So
go.
if somebody said to me, right, I knew, because I went and put my neck out. I jumped off the cliff. Here's the real killer. When I got back, I ended up selling millions of dollars worth of this handbag company, or the line I did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 2 weeks after I got back, the vice president said to me, "What title do you want?" So I said, "I want to be director of design and development." He said, "Good." So what came with that was they had showrooms all over the country that were representing their other lines.
Mm-hmm.
And now the line I had designed. I started getting a commission override on all the sales. And within the first month after I came back, I started making $9,000 and $10,000 a month.
There you
from
go.
1,500.
Wow.
1,500.
Wow.
So if I hadn't said yes, I could do better line, I'd have sat there. I still would have been making $1,500 a month. Instead, I jumped off the cliff without a net. I learned how to design a handbag.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little scary when I found out that he was the one who had done that line.
Amazing.
But
Amazing.
look how
I
it
think you
worked
should
out.
have called this book Just Say Yes, to be honest with you. Yeah. Listen, as Grady Hart, my old mate, says, Georgene Summers' life, as depicted in this treasure of a book, it holds challenges for us all to make the most of the lives that we live. Entertaining and inspiring, Angels in Sin is the most memorable book indeed, and all of her experiences culminate in painting a picture of an incredible, strong woman who isn't afraid to push the boundaries. Complete with extensive full-color photos, a lot of beautiful photos in the book, Georgene's personal journal entries from her travels. It's a great read. Angels in Sin, ladies and gentlemen. Where can you buy it? Tell me, Georgene.
Well, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes & Noble. You can get it at bookstores all over the United States. I don't know who has it in stock immediately, but they can order it from Amazon, from Barnes & Noble. Goodreads has it.
Plenty of
It's available
places.
everywhere.
Everywhere. And by the way, do you have a site where you're selling them directly off your own site?
Well, my website, I will be selling them directly off of there. They're not up there yet, but it is easy enough. They can do GeorgeneSummers.com.
Well, that's simple. GeorgeneSummers.com. Fabulous.
That's the easiest way.
Well, listen, I'm glad we had good reception there. And thanks for the time and the effort. This will be a seller. You've got to get the book to, and it'd be a lovely gift, actually. I think it's a motivational book in its own way. It makes me want to do some things. But, I think it's a nice book sharing that, look, a woman on her own can do so many things where people think they can't, and a credit to you. You're a leader,
Thank you. I think, my heart is in helping other people. I have 2 little families in Africa that I take care of, that I work with, that I met years ago on my safaris. And, I try to reach out and help people, and I feel like I'm going to start doing more speaking engagements because I think I can reach more people that way and show them that, sadly, it's like fear has been embedded really from your childhood, and some fears you don't even realize you're doing things out of fear. It's so ingrained in you. And I want people to see that fear is the great disabler, and you have to stop allowing it because to ruin your life and to keep you and prevent you from doing the things that will make your dreams come true and make your life fulfilling.
Exactly. Well, Georgene, its time is up, but I want to thank you so much for, taking this interview with me. I think it's going to be a great book. I think my listeners will enjoy it. For those that there's a lot more into it. It's so diverse. It's quite unique, and I wish you all the best in the world with it. Okay.
Well, I thank you for having me as a guest, and I love talking to you. You're incredible.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you, Georgene. Goodbye now.
Well, thank you. Bye-bye.